We have to have something defined that says, this is what success looks like. This is what the business is going to look like. This is what actually needs to happen. Then I can solve for that. Otherwise, I'm just solving for anything. It doesn't matter what I prioritize.
Well, hey Tanner, we are here back again for another great topic, and this is one that I have struggled with and will probably struggle with for, from time to time as business owners do. And this is on the topic of, really prioritizing your time and choosing what to do, especially when we feel like we have too much on our plate. And ideally, creating systems so we don't get to that point of feeling that too much on our plates, but also to help navigate it when we do get there. So, this is a great topic, and I'm excited to dive in.
Oh, yes. Prioritization. And, I love this because, some people out there may be listening and going, well, yeah, just prioritize. This is when everything feels important. And then choosing which ones are less important, but still really important, that actually need to go further down on the list. So, yes, I'm excited to dig into this one. I think there's a few different components that we can get into, but maybe let's start off with kind of what's been your experience. You had mentioned earlier that this was something that's kind of top of mind for you right now. I'm kind of walking through, hey, I've got a lot of things on my plate. Like how do I go through this? So why don't you just kind of give us a little bit of a sneak peek into what you've been experiencing and kind of where you've got some questions. Maybe we can kind of tackle them or tackle this discussion from that context.
Yes, that sounds great. Well, yes, we have a few things that within my team, within my business that we're working on. Like most businesses isn't just linear. It's not like one thing you're working on. So we have different, I guess, multiple streams of income, some that are money now, some that are money later, some that we're still developing. And I think that's where I'm getting most of my hang up is we've got a lot front loaded to that we want to work on, that we want to accomplish and create, but we got to set those foundations right for those things. And that's everything from our media portion of our business to our client portion, our DJ coaching, to events. There's all these different buckets that we have, and sometimes I find myself opening up my email, writing half an email, and then I'm doing this over here, and then I'm not really accomplishing anything, but my brain is just going like a ping pong ball, just back and forth. So I think those are kind of the things, is like, how do we know what to prioritize, even though all three of those buckets are very, very important on the list?
This will be fun. I'm excited to kind of get into this because there's a couple different components that I think are important to set the foundation of in order to answer the question. And I really want to stress that just because we prioritize something ahead of something else doesn't mean the things that get deprioritized are not important. As you just stated from your example, all three things are actually pretty important as a general concept of things, right? But something's going to have to give because time is a resource and we have to invest that resource in the ways that are going to give us the greatest opportunity for success as we define it. So I think if we look at it that way, it starts with understanding what is the goal or what is the thing we're actually solving for. Now, you could go very big to start, and usually what I like to do when I think of goals and goal setting or planning, we start with what's the longer term goal and we start to kind of chunk backwards. So let's say, think of the process of like, I'm going to set my future dreams, like the big crazy things, like I want to be this, achieve this, whatever in my lifetime. Okay, fantastic. Could we say, is what we're doing today in line with that longer term, 10, 20, 30-year goal? Sure. But is that relevant to what we should be doing today? I don't know is the answer, unless we start to chunk backwards. So we kind of take that big picture first, and then we start stepping back and say, all right, if that's the 20-year goal, what's the 10-year goal? What does success look like for me for this business in the next 10 years? Okay, well, then let's take a step back and say, well, what about 5 years from now? What about 2 years from now? What about 1 year from now? Like the closer it gets to you, the greater clarity you're likely going to have. And you may say, all right, in the next year, we need to achieve these three things in order to be on plan or on track for these larger goals that we have. So we can get a little bit more specific. Yeah, I'm not going to achieve everything in the next year, but I can achieve these next three things. Okay, great. Let's break that down. Which of those things is most important? Which one has to happen first in order for other things to take place? Maybe that's the thing we work on this quarter. right? We break it down from annual or 1 year down to quarterly. All right, now we've got the next 90 days. In order to be successful in the next 90 days, what do we need to do for the next 13 weeks, right? There's 13 weeks in it. So what has to happen each week? What, if we were to break it down in order, what has to happen first for the next thing to happen? So this kind of starts to become that first iteration of being able to prioritize. I think if there's something to summarize here, we can't prioritize if we don't know what we're prioritizing for. We have to have something defined that says this is what success looks like. This is what the business is going to look like. This is what actually needs to happen. Then I can solve for that. Otherwise, I'm just solving for anything. It doesn't matter what I prioritize. So I think that's kind of iteration number one, is first the goal setting, and then we can get into more of the tactical things. But I'll pause there for anyone that's kind of listening to this and going, wow, that was a lot of stuff. Kind of what's your thoughts on this so far? Does that kind of resonate or make sense with kind of where you're at in your journey going through kind of understanding how we might start to prioritize?
Yes, it really does. Because, like, just in this last couple of months, when I've been thinking a lot about my 90-day plan, that quarterly plan, I had to have that wake up call and when I did have it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to chase too many rabbits within my business. Not that I can't do them all because they're all relevant to the company, but I need to build the foundation for one. And so when I thought about, okay, which one am I going to choose? Which one is it? The one I really wanted to go for had to actually go to the back burner, because that one needs, we really had to think about, we needed to make sure to keep the lights on. So that one is a money later goal. And so I had to shift my focus into the money now goal, which is my DJ coaching. And how can I use this 90 days to really flesh that out, create the foundation, the systems that are needed. And, it was hard for me because I was like, oh, I just want to get into the media part of it. I just want to do this podcasting part, all the fun stuff. And I thought about it, I was like, yeah, but I love coaching too. So I had to have a little bit of a mindset focus and tell myself, when I get this accomplished, then I can fund the podcast. Then I don't have to feel like I have to rely on ticket sales only. I can, reinvest into the company, into that bucket. So also having a light at the end of the tunnel, you have 90 days. You're like, okay, I can do something for 90 days. It flies by, and then get there and then move on to the next thing. And then maybe it's like podcasting is the next one. But I think I had to really challenge myself and say, all right, Kay, you need to look at what's going to help you sustain right now. So I think that was a big wake up call, was just to see, okay, what's my priority here? And that was hard, but now I feel much better.
You said something in there that I really want to highlight for the audience. By choosing what you chose, you're helping prepare the funding for the future. And I think, especially early on in business, this can be something that's often overlooked. It's, yeah, I want to go do this thing. I love doing this thing. That's why I got into this, and that's why I'm doing these types of things. But if it doesn't generate the cash flow to sustain, you'll never get to keep doing it. So what are the things we have to prioritize today that's going to allow us to increase cash flow so that we can continue to do the things that we want, right? An unfortunate reality is when you're building a business, there's likely some things you're going to do, especially early on, that you don't absolutely love doing, but they're required for the foundation of growth. And that's okay, right? Doesn't mean that we have to do it forever. I can sit here and say, hey, I'm solving for a true business that works without me one day. I don't have to do stuff. But if I said, I'm just going to prioritize that today, and I'm just going to bring people on, and I hope it works, there's building blocks that we have to start first, right? I have to systemize a process. I have to know how this particular role is going to work, so then I can fill somebody into it. And then we'll move on and start to work on the next piece. And then we hire enough team, and we start to build out from there. So it's kind of the same thing, right? We're prioritizing what are the basic building blocks that we have to put in first, so that it allows us to fund for the future and continue to have that growth. So I'm so glad that you shared that, because it is really hard when you look at, here's the things I'd love to do, but the business can't afford for me to do them yet. What are the things that have to happen first that allow me to do that full time and have so much fun? And I think that's kind of one of the ways to think about and look at it. So what are we solving for? Kind of comes back down to that particular piece.
Definitely. And I want to kind of present a challenge for you. How do you tackle, how do you help? I should say not tackle. How do you encourage, or how do you find success in helping people like me who are very non-linear, very like I'm, trying to do all the things, really excited, have a lot of energy, but I don't have a lot of focus. So I'm just curious, how would you guide someone in finding that sense of structure and that opportunity to just like focus in on one thing?
Yeah, because focus is a really big piece. It can be really easy to get off track if we start to split the focus over a bunch of different ways. How do we do this? I tend to take a very tactical approach, which walks through this process. So one of the things, as an example, you and I have gone through kind of from a coaching perspective, and it's starting with the 90-day plan. It's starting with what are the things that we want to solve, and we really pick that apart. We talk through different things, figure out what are the top two or three things that we can do. Now, almost always, the first time somebody goes through a process like that, whether it's 90-day planning or annual planning or whatever you want to look at, but if you're building out a plan and you haven't really done it before, almost always, the business owners can put way too many things on it. They're going to think they can do all these things. So then, it's my job. I mean, this is part of what we do. And it's why I'm a big fan of having, a coach or somebody else that can guide you through this process. Same reason why we have a coach in our business that coaches us. But walking through and saying, no, you can't do all 6 of those things. You're a team of 1. You're going to start with these 3 because based on what you've said and you've outlined for this goal here, these are the things that make the most impact. Do you agree that that's the case? And get some buy-in, things like that. It's like, all right, we've narrowed it down to 3. Now what? Well, now we need to break it down into what happens every single week. Right? We work through that process together. And then it's just a matter of accountability. So you asked me, how do you take somebody like yourself that's a little bit more all over the place or anything like that? How do we get around that, or how do we ensure that there is focus? I think the answer is accountability. Really, for me, it's being willing to just like say, no, time out, pause. These are the action items that we said for this week. Did they get done? No, they didn't. Okay. What got in the way? Not why, because we're not looking for excuses. We're looking at what were the things that happened or didn't happen that caused the result that we got, because it's, the activity and the behavior, not the person that we're looking at. Right. So we take that and we start breaking it apart in terms of what are the things that got in the way or happened as a result of this past week. And are those things still relevant for the overall goal? If the answer is yes, then we don't get to move on to the next action items until these ones are done first. And it just super highlights that focus from an external accountability in this case. Some people are phenomenal at doing that same process internally. They don't need the external piece. I'm a big fan of the external, even for me personally, who feels like I'm a pretty disciplined person. Not always, though. Being able to take that step and go, what are the things that need to happen? Clarifying that with absolute, crystal clarity, and then just not allowing to move on. If those are actually important, we don't move on until those are done. And if it takes us 2 weeks instead of 1 week, then so be it. Because first things first, and we got to take those first steps to progress us on this process to be able to get to where we actually want to go. Does that answer the question?
It really does. And I see that in the work we've done together, and I see that in even like how I work with some of my artists it motivates me because I want to get past the step we're on. I'm like I get bored easy, and I'm like, okay, so it gets me going. I'm like, okay, until this is done, I can't move on and get to this next fun thing that my brain is telling me, oh, this is like, going in that direction. So it actually motivates me to accomplish what needs to be done, even if it's something that I find is kind of I don't want to use the word painful, but like painstaking, like finances, for example, for me are not fun yet, down the road, maybe when they will be, but to know that if I get this done, I get to move on to something that is more exciting to me. So to get through those hurdles or those more challenging points, I think that's like a good tactic I've learned to move forward, and then you get to the fun week, and those tasks like are easy to accomplish, and then you're like, let's rock and roll. But then each week is different, but knowing that by accomplishing that and breaking it down, that I only have a week that I need to really be working concerned or like going through this challenging process, like you have the light at the end of the tunnel. And once you get there, you're like, oh, I can move on now. So it's actually quite motivating.
Yeah. And especially being early on in a journey, there's, like I said before, there's going to be some things that maybe aren't the most fun things to do, but they do need to get done because they're the most important. And I know about a week ago or so, we talked about delegation, and this is really the process of starting to build the things that allow you to then earn the right to go hire somebody, because you've increased cash flow, allows you to hire somebody else that somebody else can take on financials so that you don't have to. And you can just read the report and know what's going on and guide your business versus having to get into the minutia of it. But it's working through that process, and you have to build those foundations, those building blocks first. So I had heard, actually just a couple of weeks ago, heard kind of another way to think about the prioritization of things. Traditionally we think of like A-level tasks, B-level tasks, C-level, and D-level, and C's and D's you try to delegate off or just delete completely, right? Depending on what it is and kind of the situation. But I really liked this additional way to think about it. And it was the A tasks, the ones that are going to make me money. Like, they're going to make my business money, they're going to make me money, they're going to continue to build my quality of life overall based on the success criteria I have. The B-level ones then are the ones that contribute to or could make me money. So this could be setting sales appointments, but not actually taking them yet. This could be doing podcasts because it leads to lead generation, as an example. It could be reading and learning different books or listening to podcasts because it's enriching my brain on how to do this next step that's going to allow me to continue to grow and make more money within the company, right? So these are things that are those kind of B-level tasks. C's, in this example, were things that would cost me money if they weren't being done. So an example would be paying a bill. If I don't pay the bill, it's going to cost me. It doesn't make me money to pay the bill, but generally speaking, I have to get it done, or I have to pay my taxes. Otherwise, it's going to cost me. So I can't get rid of it. It has to be done still, but it's a C-level task because it doesn't make me money, but it's going to cost me if I don't. The D level then is everything else. Those are the ones that it's not going to make me money. It doesn't make me money, and it's not really costing me anything if I don't do it. And oftentimes these are things get pulled up into our day-to-day life that maybe we could just drop some of those altogether. So I thought that was a useful frame to think about. I think depending on how you apply it, there's different nuances to it, of course. But as a general thought, I'm like, that's a really neat way to think about it, especially if you're early on in a business journey. You got to get the cash flow up so that we can start to, as we talked about in the previous episodes, buy back some of your time with team members and things like that. We have to get those things up and running. So what are the things that are going to allow me to make money or put me in a position to be able to make money as a company and or as an individual?
Definitely. And that kind of goes back to when I had that aha moment of I need to be focusing on those A tasks, like what's going to bring my company money quickly and efficiently, and get that in a system and get that going first. And then I can go to those B-level tasks of, the podcast recordings or events, or really capitalizing and growing events. But really looking at what's my money now versus my money later, and then the other tasks, the C and D tasks too, and bringing those into the mix when the time is right. So yeah, that was totally the mindset that I got into when I was like, oh man, I really need to shift my focus into chase the rabbit that was the coaching rabbit first to be able to get into those other things.
I love that. The last piece that I'll share, you are someone out there who has never done a time study before, this is usually a really great place to start as you're going through this journey. I know we've talked about it in previous episodes. Probably been a minute since we've last kind of spoken about this. But once you've got your goals defined, you've got clarity of what am I ultimately solving for, and I kind of know what tasks to prioritize, it's a good idea to just do an audit. Figure out kind of where is my time actually going today. Simple as just pen to paper and write down, hey, this 15-minute block I did this 15-minute block I did this, or this 30-minute chunk I did this. And just do it for a week to 2 weeks and just kind of take a look. Don't try to change things, just see where's my time going, because now I can have a better understanding of I can pull this one out, or I actually need a lot more time for this task than I thought I did, but it's really important to do, so I need to prioritize some extra time for that. It's a really good way to do it. Now, I've got this thing sitting here on my desk called the time flip. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this before. One of my clients got this, and so I've been taking a look at it and trying it out. But basically, you can set up different things from idea generation to phone calls to I'm taking a break or whatever, and you just flip it to whatever. So kind of a neat way to log your time. I don't think they're overly inexpensive, but they're out there. It's there's different tools to be able to do it. You don't have to just do pen to paper, but that's the simplest way to do it. So time study, I'm going to recommend it. If you haven't done one in a while, go back, do one, just see where things are at. I'll usually do one at least twice a year, but I try to do probably about once a quarter and just kind of see where am I drifting, where are things going, and I could reprioritize as a basis of that.
Yes, like the great way to fix it is to see it, and that's a great way to see it. We should definitely link that time flip in the show notes because what a great and kind of fun way to look at time tracking and seeing where you're at. I really
Yeah.
enjoy that.
Yeah. And we're in no way affiliated with it. So you use it, don't use it, totally up to you. But yeah, well, I'll definitely throw that in the description below. We'll also throw in there, we do host, a variety of free workshops every single month, and we've got a couple that are on kind of this topic of time management. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you want to join other business owners and actually have some conversations, talk through, go a little bit deeper on how do we master this resource of time and how do we talk about delegation like we did in the previous episode. That's a great way to kind of get involved. They're in person. They're here in kind of Leander, Texas, where our office is. Would love to have anyone that's here that would like to come in and join that and get some additional value. They're free. Just like to kind of give back and continue to share these wisdom nuggets. Hopefully they're wisdom nuggets for y'all in just a little bit of a different format.
Definitely. Well, there was so much value in this. Thank you so much, Tiana, for this conversation. Yes, I definitely am excited to see any of y'all that are watching and listening. Come on out, say hi, come on out to a workshop. We want to help you find that success and get over the challenges that you're facing in business.